Trenton Journal is for people who won't take no for an answer. Trenton Journal is for community leaders. Trenton Journal is for people who won't settle. Trenton Journal highlights some of the positive voices in the community and fills in the information gaps through original reporting.
Welcome to Capital Conversations. I'm your host, Kenneth Miles, founder and publisher of the Trenton Journal. Each episode, we bring you change makers and stakeholders who are making an impact in the city. And today I have with me at-large Councilwoman and Mayoral candidate, Jasi Edwards.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
All right. Well, it's been about 4 years since you've been on council, right?
Just about.
Yes. What has that experience been like for you?
It's been amazing. I'll be honest, it's been a roller coaster. Every day is something different, from a fire to sidewalk issues to streets to lead lines. It fluctuates all over the place between public safety issues and waterwork issues. But I think it's been an amazing experience. We have made some great strides with clearing up a lot of the issues that we have been seeing over the years. So I'd love to talk to you about that more.
Okay. So what have you learned for the past 4 years before you got on council? Now you've been in the thick of it. Like, what's the biggest lesson you learned being in it?
Processes matter. Defining clear standards of operating procedures matter. How we govern, how we show up, and representing people matters. In terms of just bringing the concerns to our legislative work, being able to create laws, amend laws, or even eradicate outstanding long-term laws from the 50s and 60s that no longer serves our community, that could possibly be a hindrance for us. So that's a lot of what I do on council, and I was able to clear up a lot of things over the last 3 years. What
was the moment that you said, I'm going to run, and what led up to it? Did you always know that you wanted to run for mayor even when you was on council, or did you, what prompted this?
No, I wanted to be a part of the change I wanted to see. I started off as a political activist, a community activist, if you will, against gun violence, reducing poverty, reducing gun violence. And that was always my goal, not to run for mayor or to achieve any title. It happened because I didn't like how our government was leading on council, needless to say. And so I ran for council. But the moment that I felt the strong sense of urge to run for mayor would be when the Department of Justice investigation report came out, and the lack of transparency and urgency and real solutions to the matter. I feel like it was ignored, and it was deliberately. And I stepped up to try to bring the concerns of the residents and police officers to the attention of the administration, but for some reason, they did not agree with the report. Despite the concerns and the real experiences from residents, including myself, who has experienced police brutality, who has seen it firsthand. I know these issues have happened and continue to happen. And it wasn't okay the way that the administration handled it. And I believe that we need better leadership that's willing to communicate and work with our constituents.
You actually wrote in the op-ed that we need a serious structural overhaul.
Yes, we do.
Right? What does that entail?
That entails reallocations of resources, and not just funding, but human capital as well. We have a good amount of police officers, but unfortunately not enough of them on patrol. And we're seeing that every day. We're seeing that downtown with a lot of vagrancy. We're seeing that citywide with shootings, with break-ins. There's a lack of response or slow response, but there's not enough police officers to respond to these things. And not just in reactionary sense, but preventative measures. So in talking to dozens of police officers over the last couple of years to get a real sense of what's going on and where the breakdowns are, there needs to be restructuring. We have over 200 officers and only 92 of them on patrol, split between different shifts. I won't get into the numbers because it'll be a security issue, but we significantly need more officers on patrol. We need to work with our street teams more with Safe Passage. We need to work with our Arrive Together programs, our task force that we have with Mercer County and the state police. And we have our own internal task force as well for crimes on the street. So we're not leaning on these resources that we have well enough to prevent a lot of the crimes and a lot of the violence that we're seeing citywide.
Part of the problems with attracting new officers to the city is the low pay, the low salary. How would you fix that?
I've already begun. So there were or are 49 vacancies right now, which makes up over $3 million of the budget. For entry-level police officers, it is earmarked in the budget for about $36,000 starting out. Whereas I believe Hamilton starts out at 52. So we have people that will go through our academy, and then by the time they get out, they're hired in another municipality because they're being paid $15,000 plus more elsewhere. So if we can take half of those vacant positions that's been vacant consistently over the last 5 years and cut those in half and reallocate half of that funding to the rest of the positions, we'll be able to be competitive more than our surrounding townships that are offering 52. If we can offer 55 or even 58 to $60,000 starting off, a livable wage, then we'll be able to not only attract but retain police officers.
What are some of the changes that you made that you're proud of since you've been on council?
One of my favorite things is with the Housing and Economic Development Department. I had initiated an ad hoc committee for Housing and Economic Development where we meet bi-weekly with two of my colleagues in the administration to clear up the process and define it. So a lot of the complaints over the last 10 to 15 years that I've known, you can't get a list of properties that the city owns so that you can buy something if you want to invest into the city, either as an investor or a homeowner, occupied resident. So I had worked with the administration to make that list public and to also change the application around as well through the ad hoc committee so we can properly vet properties of people that are trying to buy properties, especially with the LLCs. We see a lot of people from out of town buying up properties, but little to no accessibility for Trentonians to buy properties. So being that we can't restrict people from out of town from buying them, by law, we had to get creative. So I have worked with the administration to draft a resolution that prioritizes who we sell the properties to, beginning with people that want to buy them to live in them, people that want to buy them to sell them to people that live in them, or even to rent too. It's a little lower on the list, but there's a prioritization list that the administration has to go by. Council is the redevelopment authority, so we set these standards with the administration. And since we clearly defined the process and created that accessibility, we have been able to approve over 100 sales alone in 2025.
How many?
Over 100 property sales. Now, prior to me getting on council, this administration sold about 6.
That's a big difference.
That's a huge difference.
One of the issues that's plaguing our community, especially the immigrant population in Trenton, are ICE raids. How do you plan to handle that? And what have you done on council to help mitigate some of the fear that people are living with in our communities?
That's a good question. Man, coming from the federal government, working 10 years in Congress, I have a lot of experience with immigration issues. And being on council and being so limited on a city level, unfortunately, the mayor and the police department cannot prohibit ICE from coming into the city or going after anyone that they have been able to prove that they're undocumented. As long as they have a warrant that is signed by a federal judge, they can detain that person. So, and they don't have to tell, according to the police director, they don't have to tell the director that they're coming or who they took. So for how the administration is handling it now, the police department is there. There have been a lot of, angry people that have been coming to the council meetings necessarily and understandably. And in that, we have adopted the resolution of support for the Immigration Trust Act that the Attorney General had put out maybe a year or two ago. But I am in the process of doing a resolution that would clearly define the SOPs for the police. Like, they're not allowed to detain people or arrest anyone, any immigrants, and assist ICE in that manner. They don't have to by federal law. So the ordinance that I have in drafts defines that clearly. It does not supersede federal or state laws, but it clearly defines the outlines and parameters of the local police departments and the do's and don'ts. So protecting people, making sure ICE has a signed warrant, making sure that this person is the person that they're going after. We want to make sure there is no frivolous means of trying to go after people by making false phone calls to gain access to anyone's home. You must have a warrant. So it can't be through frivolous means like that. It's unfortunate what's happening. We're seeing less kids going to school. We're seeing less people going to work. And that's a scary situation for all people, not just Latinos, but there are all across the African diaspora as well, and some European background. So we're seeing this, and under my administration, I would definitely work with my police director to better handle these situations to make sure that Renee Good situation does not happen here, because there are a lot of people that show up and they're very angry. I have seen people yelling at ICE, and we don't want that to happen here, where someone is murdered or shot and harmed by ICE officers. So we definitely want to be able to work with the constituents that are showing up, advocates who have the right to be there, but we want to make sure they're not in harm's way. We want to make sure that the people that are being detained by federal law, that they're being treated humanely, that children aren't being put in handcuffs and having to live with that trauma for the rest of their lives. So it's just about being treated humanely while we understand federal laws must be followed.
What's the status of your Civilian Complaint Review Board?
The status of it is right now the administration does not support it. They believe that we don't need it. I believe that we do, and a large amount of residents believe that we do. I have hosted a town hall where Senator Angela McKnight came out. She's a sponsor of it in the Senate. And she spoke to having to reintroduce it this year under the new legislature. But I received overwhelming support, not just from residents of the city, but police officers as well, that is needed here. And it's not about ridiculing the police department. It's about making sure that our residents are being treated fairly, that we don't have civil rights violations, that we don't have police brutality. And also, sometimes things are happening internally between the police officers, and we want to make sure that they are heard as well and their needs are addressed. So I'm going to continue to push this now that the new legislature is in there and the senators and the assembly can reintroduce it. But right now I'm working on hopefully gaining support from my colleagues and an understanding so that we can get this passed. But if not, then I will revisit that as mayor, God willing, I'm elected.
Could you explain to the public the difference between the powers that you have as an at-large councilwoman versus what your powers would be if elected mayor of Trenton?
So I'm glad you asked that, because there is a lot of confusion around who's responsible for what. So we are legislators council, so we can create laws, amend laws, reduce or eradicate laws. We can define policies and things like that, but we don't handle the day-to-day operations of the city. So the responses with police or fire or water and things like that, we have oversight. We can recommend, we can suggest, we can even crack down on them and say what is happening is not right and we would suggest this. But ultimately, that decision comes down to the mayor and their will to, implement the solutions or changes that are required or necessary. So our power is very limited, and it takes 4 of us to vote on things to get it passed. So it's not just me as a council member. It requires at least 4 members to vote to pass a law, to pass a resolution, to do anything.
Because Trenton is such a diverse city, right? Mm-hmm. Young people, you have your seniors, people from various demographics. How do you plan to bring everyone together as one Trenton and meet the needs of various communities, both young and old, Black, white, Hispanic? How do you plan to do that?
By doing what I have been doing, involving every community. Just taking it back to when I was just an activist and advocate trying to clean up the city, voter registrations, rallies and protests and marches. Those were all done in every side of the city intentionally because our city is broken down into silos culturally. This neighborhood doesn't like this one. This culture doesn't like another one. So my work has intentionally involved every ethnicity since the time that I stepped into being an activist. So on council, we do that, well, as a mayor, I would say, we would do that through our boards. Through our different boards. We have a senior advisory council. We have a multicultural heritage board that is inactive. We have a lot of different boards that we can involve every culture on and make sure that it has a diverse representation and not just from different ethnicities, but different age groups as well, because children or youth have a different perspective than seniors do. So reaching all of those demographics is highly important.
What would you say is Trenton's greatest strength? Also its greatest weakness?
Our greatest strength is being the capital of the state of New Jersey. And that is also our greatest weakness. Because we're the capital, we can be strong. We can get support statewide. We have massive amount of potential here from just our properties alone that we possess that are vacant, dilapidated. We have opportunities to bring developers here and really truly rebuild our city. That is our strength. And as a capital city, we can pull in resources from different entities like the state, the federal, and the county governments to pour into Trenton. But also at the same time, that is a weakness because we are the capital. The state statutes say these government entities have to be here and they're taking up a lot of real estate, tax, non-tax real estate, and some prime locations like 29 is sitting on our waterfront. Most of the state buildings are in our downtown areas. Those are prime real estate areas in other major cities, whereas they're able to capitalize on that private development, sky rises and things like that, mixed use properties. So we are very oversaturated with tax exempt places here, mostly government buildings that take up about 50% of our land. So that is a weakness, but it's also a strength because that's a workforce as well that we can capitalize on. But we can't do that if permits take too long, if inspections take too long, and if downtown looks the way it does, public safety wise, to be able to attract and retain businesses here to capitalize on that workforce. So we have a lot of strengths and weaknesses, but I think we have more strengths than we do weaknesses.
I like that. I like the answer. What would you say what metrics would you use if elected mayor to say, oh, I'm doing a good job or I'm not doing such a good job the first year in office? What are your plans? Because I hear that a lot, see that online. What plans do you have to bring Trenton to the status that it should be as the capital city of one of the wealthiest states in the country?
I'm going to try to say this in the quickest way possible.
No, go ahead.
Because we do have 9 different departments and things like that. But the measures that we can take are performance evaluations for our employees at the very basic level, so that we are making sure that we're improving their work ethics, their morale, their drive, and making sure they're delivering and in a timely manner. So implementing performance evaluations, audits on each department annually. We need weekly and monthly reports from each department that would allow us to be able to capture the data that we need to ensure that the measurables are consistent, like, our efficiencies, bringing up our revenue, providing tax relief. How do we do these things? We do these things through measurables, as you say. So transparency, communication, working with our consultancy firms that would evaluate each and every single division of our city, and always addressing the findings of each of these audits. That is something that I see that is missing year after year. They're the same findings that we need to address. So making sure that we are addressing all of these findings that point out the inefficiencies that we need to improve.
How would you address the issues of, I can't interview you without mentioning Trenton Waterworks? And where do you stand on that? Should it be sold?
It should not be sold. Trenton Waterworks is our most valuable asset. It is a revenue self-liquidating asset and utility. Water in itself is such a critical resource, vital resource to humans and to life, period. I don't think that should be in the hands of a private company that does not have as much oversight. I believe it does need to stay in control of the people, of the residents. I started an ad hoc committee. It took me about a year to get it passed because of the differences and misunderstandings and miscommunications between DEP and council and the administration. And now that we have an understanding, full scope of what's going on, the $763 million is going to take to repair this utility and mapping that out through this ad hoc committee. So that's something that I'm spearheading, actually, and we have a meeting on the 27th. So since I have begun this ad hoc committee, now we have a 10-year capital improvement plan. I was able to talk the administration into revisiting the rate increase to bring that down from 14% to 5%. I was shooting for 7, but I was very happy that we landed at 5 over the course of 9 years, as opposed to that 60% increase happening in 5 years. So just keeping in mind the cost of living for our residents and how that would impact them to have such a significant increase in such a short amount of time, on top of everything else that's going up. PSE&G went up, food went up, rent is going
Everything's
up.
going up.
Interest rates, so your mortgage is going up. And so we need to be careful with how we handle the rate increases. But it is a necessary evil because we need more revenue to be able to do those $763 million in repairs.
You mentioned economic development within the city. What's the status of the hotel?
The status of the hotel, we did pick a developer. We went through a strenuous process of elimination, hearing everyone out, and we had settled on Tetra Built, who has experience with redeveloping hotels around the country. There are issues with the owner. There are issues with past due water utilities and fines that are owed to the state and back taxes and things like that. They're not under contract yet, but hopefully we will be soon and be able to open up, I would say, by 2028 at the very latest, realistically, because there is no signed contract right now.
The mayor said by 250th anniversary, and clearly we're not going to meet that mark, right?
Definitely not. It was a very unrealistic timeline, considering I am a developer myself. I've purchased 5 properties myself. They take an extremely amount of time sometimes. So things don't happen overnight. I think that he was very hopeful and optimistic, but realistically, just the details of getting under contract, figuring out the past due balances from water, from the fines, there's nearly $1 million owed to the state from this owner. So a lot of that has to be hashed out. And unfortunately, we probably won't be under contract for another couple of months.
And that's also, I believe, a missed opportunity for the city.
Absolutely. Under my leadership, that hotel would not have been allowed to sit there. And in fact, I'll be transparent with you. About a year ago, I said that we should declare eminent domain. That hotel has been sitting there for 12 years. And we have seen an extreme economic decline of our downtown and citywide commercial corridors. And that's directly correlated with the hotel. We lost Maxine's. We lost different businesses. We lost Starbucks. We lost Subway. There were a lot of businesses, even the nail shop had to close down because of the loss of walkable traffic, which isn't entirely solely on the hotel closing, because the pandemic did a number of on us, and a lot of the state workers still aren't back. So they're still operating on a hybrid schedule. So we're not able to capitalize, the businesses are not able to capitalize on what used to be a very busy downtown because of the state workers were in the buildings. Now, a lot of times they're home, so they don't have that foot traffic anymore. And accompanying that with the hotel, it did a number on our downtown economically.
So what does the vetting process look like for the developer?
The vetting process was through, with council being the redevelopment authority, we facilitated public meetings where each of them came in to do a presentation and was subjected to a Q&A from council. What we look for is experience, a good plan. Realistically, we look at their budget to see if realistically they're able to accomplish what they want to happen at the hotel, whether they are going to include a local workforce. We want Trentonians to be hired. If it's going to include retail and mixed use opportunities in there, we would hope that they would prioritize, local entrepreneurs. So those are the things that we ask for. Amenities, this used to be a convention center, and, the NAACP used to host things there. A lot of different organizations used to host things right here in Trenton. And inadvertently, that helped a lot of the businesses downtown. So we look for them to just have a solid plan, and we make sure that they have funding to be able to do it, because the last thing we want to do is sell it to someone that cannot afford.
I was going to ask you that, so I'm glad you answered that. So they were vetted to verify that the money is there. They have the capabilities of seeing this through.
That was one of my number one questions. Yes, is the funding.
All right. Now, Jasi Edwards, the woman, born and raised in Trenton?
Yes.
Why'd you decide to stay?
This is home. This is where my heart is. This is where my family is from. Originally, we're from Virginia. I'm indigenous, and my family migrated up here to New Jersey for work and just getting away from Jim Crow areas of the country. So I am, I believe, third or fourth generation born in Trenton at Helen Full. I believe Trenton can be the capital city that we all desire it to be. And if I leave, just like many others who get their education and find opportunities elsewhere, who is left to rebuild our city if all of the talent is leaving? So for me, I feel more inclined to stay and be a part of the change I want to see rather than leaving and going to somewhere else that's more established. Home will always be in a state of poverty and deterioration if we all go.
I want you to look to this camera over here, speak directly to the people, and let them know, why are you the best choice to be mayor of Trenton in 2026?
I would say I'm the best mayor for the city of Trenton because of the 14 years of government experience that I have, because of the experience that I have on council, being able to work with this administration day to day, creating processes, eliminating barriers, and being a part of the programs. I can start working from day one. I don't have to go through a years long learning curve trying to figure out what's what, because I'm already involved. I hear the concerns of the residents, and I'm not afraid to stand up and speak up, even when that's against the popular opinion, so I will fight for residents. I have fought for the residents, for Trenton to rebuild our city for a greater portion of my life. I have contacts with developers who want to open up in Trenton, but not under the current leadership. We need strong leadership, and I am that strong leadership. And I just ask that you consider me, despite any allegations, any lack of experience, notions that may be thrown out there by other people. I am the right candidate for this job.
Jasi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.